Today's story is Strongest Rebirth. My Yandere goddesses broke the world for me. Chapter 11 to 20. Chapter 11, Combat Theory Practical. Total revenue, 124,500 mana credits. Zen stared at the bright blue numbers floating on the screen. Over 120,000 credits. It was more money than the original host of this body had seen in his entire life. I can finally afford some real gear, Zen smirked, and maybe a decent meal. He lay down on his mattress and looked up at the ceiling. It was all rusty. He was ranking up. He was making money, but he knew he had to keep it a total secret. Tomorrow was going to be tough. He had to go to class and face Valeria. She would definitely notice that he was stronger now. One step at a time, Zen said quietly to himself, closing his eyes. The next morning, Zen woke up early. He bathed, put on his faded academy uniform, and grabbed his heavy canvas bag. He took a breath before opening the door to his room. Every student in the dorm had their own tiny room, so there was no one around to help him if Kalen's goons were waiting to cause trouble. He opened the door. It was Kalen. Valeria was standing right outside his room. She was leaning against the rusted wall, looking perfectly put together in her school uniform. Her fake glasses were sitting neatly on her nose. "Good morning, Zen," Valeria smiled sweetly. Zen froze. "Val, how long have you been standing there?" "Not long," she said, even though it was obviously not true. She reached out and adjusted his collar. "Only since 3 in the morning. I couldn't sleep, so I came to make sure you were safe." Zen felt a chill run down his spine. She had stood outside his door for 4 hours just listening to him sleep. "I'm fine," Zen said, stepping out into the hall. "Let's just go to class." Valeria linked her arm through his as they started walking down the hall. But after just 2 steps, she suddenly stopped. Her sweet smile vanished. She turned to him, her red eyes narrowing behind her glasses. She stepped closer, pressing her body against him, and took a deep breath. "Your mana," Valeria whispered, her voice taking on that dark, obsessive tone. "It's thicker, it's stable." Zen's heart pounded against his ribs. "You should be mid-F rank now," Valeria said flatly. She looked up at him, her eyes flashing with a dangerous light. "A broken core can't fix itself. It needs raw mana. You told me you stayed in your room last night. Did you lie to me, Zen? Did you go into a dungeon?" The air in the hallway got freezing cold. Zen knew if he answered wrong, she was going to drag him to an underground bunker right now. He had to use the system's advice. He had to seduce her. Zen didn't pull away. Instead, he stepped even closer to her. He looked into her red eyes, keeping his face completely calm. "I didn't leave my room," Zen said in a low and smooth voice. "I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about you." Valeria's breath hitched. "About me." "When you grabbed me yesterday in the alleyway," Zen lied, letting his hand rest gently on her waist. "Your golden Aegis mana was so strong, it left a trace on me. My broken core reacted to it. You jump-started my healing, Val." Valeria gasped softly. The scary aura vanished immediately. Her cheeks flushed a deep, dark red. She looked down at his chest, completely flustered. I did that," she whispered, her voice shaking with happiness. "You did," Zen said with a smile. "So don't accuse me of lying again." "I'm sorry," Valeria said quickly, burying her face in his shoulder. "I'm so sorry, Zen. I just worry about you so much. The thought of my mana fixing you, it makes me happy." Zen let out a sigh of relief in his head. Her ego and obsession loved the idea that she was the one who could fix him, meaning for now, she was not going to hurt him. Yet. They walked to the main campus together. The other students avoided them completely, pressing against the lockers to get out of Valeria's way. When they reached the training room, Professor Vance was standing in front of a massive steel door. The rest of the lower-ranked class, E down to F rank, was gathered around, looking nervous. "Listen up," Professor Vance yelled, tapping his terminal. "Today is your combat theory practical. Behind these doors is an artificial E-rank zone matrix. The terrain will shift, and there will be low-level fake monsters inside. They will not kill you, but they will break your bones if you are stupid. So, don't be stupid. Jax waved at Zen from the back of the crowd. Maya was next to him, looking scared. She kept her eyes on the floor, afraid to look at Valeria. You will enter in your chosen pairs, Vance continued. Your objective is simple. Survive the maze, find the glowing blue relic in the center, and bring it back. You have 30 minutes. This will be easy, Valeria whispered to Zen, squeezing his arm. I'll just punch through the walls to the center. We'll be done in 2 minutes. No, Zen said quietly. We play by the rules. We don't need to draw attention. Whatever you say, partner, she smiled. Zen looked past the professor. Kalen was standing on the balcony above the doors, leaning against the railing with his arms crossed. He was staring at Zen with a smile. Zen frowned. Something was wrong. Kalen wasn't just here to gloat or tease. System, Zen thought. Analyze Kalen's behavior. What is the probability that he's planning something? Calculating. Based on the target's body language, past hostility, and the timing of his presence, there is a 98% probability that he planned a sabotage for your practical exam. A trap, Zen thought. Negative, insufficient data, be careful. Arclight Val, Professor Vance barked, pointing his clipboard at them. You two are up first for coming in late. Step onto the entry pad. Zen looked at the glowing blue circle on the floor. He couldn't back away on a suspicion that Kalen had probably set a trap. If he did, Vance would fail him, and he would be drafted into the military meat grinder anyway. If he accused Kalen, he had no solid proof. He had to go in. Let's go, Valeria said happily, pulling him to the glowing pad. She did not know they might be walking into danger or a trap. She was just excited to be alone with him in a dark maze. Zen stepped onto the pad. He looked up at the balcony. Kalen was grinning at him, waving mockingly. System, Zen thought as the blue light began to swirl around them. Calculate the worst-case scenario and prepare for immediate hostile engagement. Acknowledged. Good luck, Emperor. The light flashed blindingly bright, and the training facility completely disappeared. When Zen opened his eyes, the air instantly hurt his lungs. It did not smell like the ozone-scented air of an artificial training matrix. It smelled like ancient dust, blood, and rotten stone. The room was lit only by faintly glowing red crystals in the ceiling. Val, Zen called out, pushing himself up. Silence. System, Zen whispered. Where is Val? Analyzing. There was a disruption during the teleportation that caused a spatial scatter. Target. Valeria is currently located 500 meters east of your position, behind several solid rock walls. Zen let out a breath. On one hand, he was free from Valeria. On the other hand, he was alone in whatever this place was. Suddenly, a deep, loud growl shook the dust from the ceiling. From the shadows at the far end of the cavern, a pair of glowing yellow eyes opened. The ground shook as a big creature stepped into the low light. It was a minotaur, with dark fur and thick iron chains. It had a battle axe the size of a car and breathed out hot clouds of steam. A bloodhorn minotaur, Zen realized, drawing his rusted sword from his back. High E rank. 500 meters away. Valeria landed gracefully on her feet, adjusting her fake glasses. She looked around the empty, dark corridor. Zen, Valeria asked, her voice echoing into the darkness. No answer. Her sweet, innocent smile from a few seconds ago faded. She looked down at the dirt floor. She was alone. Zen, this isn't funny, Valeria called out, her voice dropping a little. Where are you? Silence. A localized pulse of golden Aegis mana rippled out from her boots. She closed her eyes, feeling the ambient mana of the dungeon. She didn't feel Zen's weak, broken core. But she did feel the massive, violent aura of a bloodhorn minotaur moving aggressively toward the west. Valeria's eyes opened wide. The red glow behind her glasses was burning with a terrifying light. An E-rank boss, Valeria whispered. Someone sent him to fight a real boss. She turned toward the solid stone wall, blocking her path to the west. I'm coming, Zen, Valeria said, her voice vibrating with pure, murderous intent. She pulled her fist back. Golden mana gathered around her knuckles, shining brightly. Valeria hit the rock with her fist. Boom. The entire cavern shook as the punch made a massive hole in the 10-foot-thick stone wall, sending boulders flying into the next chamber. Valeria walked through the dust. She was breathing hard. Her eyes were wide and manic. Hold on, my emperor, she whispered as she raised her fist to hit the next wall. I will kill it. I will kill whoever is at fault for this mistake. I will kill all of them. Chapter 12. Inside an unmapped zone. Professor Vance was staring at the massive wall of holographic screens in the training room. There were 15 screens showing different angles of the artificial E-rank maze. All of them were empty. Where are they? Professor Vance yelled, slamming his clipboard on the control panel. Arclight and the new transfer student got on the pad 3 minutes ago. Why are they not on the screens? The young technician was typing away on his keyboard, his face getting paler. I don't know, sir. The monitoring drones inside the matrix didn't catch them entering. There is no video feed, no mana signature. Nothing. What do you mean nothing? Professor Vance grabbed the technician by the collar. Did the teleportation go wrong? No, the pad activated perfectly, the technician stuttered. But the destination coordinates, they did not go to the training maze. The system logged a critical error, a spatial fracture. A spatial fracture? Vance's eyes went wide. You're telling me 2 F-rank students were just thrown into a random, unmapped part of the domain? Why, yes, sir. We are trying to trace the spatial residue now, but it could take hours to find them. Vance let go of the man and ran a hand down his face. Lock down the facility. Nobody else steps on that pad. Call the Vanguard emergency line. If they landed in an active zone above their ranks, they are already dead. Up on the viewing balcony, Kalen Thorne was leaning against the railing, chuckling quietly. Everything was going exactly as planned. The trash that mocked him in the cafeteria was being taken out, and the academy just thought it was a random system error. Inside the unmapped zone, Zen stood completely still. The air in the dark, dusty cave was freezing. A drop of sweat rolled down the side of his face. 10 feet away, the Bloodhorn Minotaur let out a roar that shook the ground. It was over 8 feet tall, its dark fur matted with dried blood. Thick iron chains were wrapped around its arms, and it held a rusted battle axe that looked heavy enough to split a tank in half. Target, Bloodhorn Minotaur, high E-rank boss. Status, very aggressive. Thick skin reduces damage by 60%. Zen reached to his side and drew his weapon. Since his cheap sword shattered in the sewers last night, he had grabbed a standard-issue, unsharpened academy training blade from the weapon rack right before stepping on the teleportation pad. It was basically a heavy metal stick. System, Zen thought. What are the odds of this training sword piercing its hide? Calculating, 0%. The blade is blunt. You must target unarmored vitals, the eyes, the inner mouth, or the base of the skull beneath the fur. Before Zen could plan his attack, a massive sound echoed through the cavern. Boom. The entire cave vibrated. Dust and small rocks rained down from the ceiling. The sound came from the stone wall to the east. Valeria. She was punching her way through the dungeon to get to him. System, how long until she breaks through? Zen asked, his heart beating faster. Based on the density of the rock and her mana output, she will breach your chamber in exactly 55 seconds. Zen gritted his teeth. If Valeria broke through that wall and saw him using ancient techniques to fight a high E-rank boss, his cover as a weak student was completely gone. She would know he was the Emperor. She would never let him out of her sight again. If he didn't fight, the Minotaur would crush him right now. 55 seconds, Zen said. He gripped the training sword with both hands and pushed his newly expanded mid-F-rank magic into his legs. Let's make it quick. The Minotaur snorted, blowing a cloud of steam from its nose. It charged. Every step the beast took shook the dirt under Zen's feet. It raised the massive battle axe and brought it down in a brutal, vertical chop. Zen didn't run away. He waited until the blade was inches from his face. First step, the Emperor's stride. Zen turned his foot and slid smoothly to the right, avoiding the monster's momentum entirely. The battle axe slammed into the dirt where he had just been standing, burying itself into the ground. The Minotaur roared in anger, trying to yank the axe out of the floor. Zen didn't give it the chance. He dashed forward, stepping directly onto the side of the stuck axe blade. He used it as a springboard, launching himself up toward the beast's face. The Minotaur opened its mouth to bite him, its sharp teeth coated in foul-smelling saliva. Zen spun in midair. He didn't try to cut it. He used the handle at the bottom of his training sword and smashed it directly into the Minotaur's glowing yellow eye. The beast shrieked in pain, throwing its head back and blindly swinging its massive chained arm. The iron chain clipped Zen in the ribs. "Gah!" Zen grunted as the force threw him through the air. He hit the cavern wall hard, tumbling into the dirt. Warning, minor rib break detected. Core stability remains intact. Boom. The eastern wall cracked. A spiderweb of fractures spread across the stone. Dust poured out. Valeria was getting closer. Estimated breach time, 20 seconds. "Come on," Zen hissed, forcing himself up. He spat a mouthful of blood onto the floor. The Minotaur was furious. With one eye completely ruined, it grabbed the iron chains wrapped around its arms and whipped them through the air like deadly flails. The heavy iron links smashed into the stone pillars around the room, shattering them like glass. Zen watched the chains swing. He couldn't get close enough to strike its neck without getting his head taken off. I have to use its own strength, Zen thought. He ran forward, deliberately stepping into the Minotaur's line of sight. The beast roared and whipped its heavy right chain directly at Zen's chest. Zen dropped to his knees, sliding across the dirt. The chain flew over his head. Before the Minotaur could pull the chain back, Zen jammed his training sword down into the dirt right through one of the heavy iron links, pinning the chain to the ground. The Minotaur yanked its arm back, but the chain was stuck tight. The sudden massive resistance threw the beast off balance. It stumbled forward and dropped to one knee. "Now," Zen said. He jumped off the ground, over the monster's thick shoulder. As he passed over its back, he didn't pull from his own weak core. Instead, he forced his lungs to inhale the heavy, ancient mana of the unmapped dungeon. Primordial void breathing. It felt like inhaling liquid fire. For a fraction of a second, his mortal body acted like a god's, boosting his physical strength to an S-rank level. He didn't need a sword. Zen drove his fist directly into the base of the Minotaur's skull. The ancient technique focused all of that stolen, explosive ambient energy into a needle-like point. Crack. The sound of the monster's spine snapping echoed loudly through the quiet cavern. The Minotaur froze. Its remaining yellow eye rolled back into its head. The massive beast collapsed forward, hitting the dirt with a lifeless thud. Target eliminated. Zen fell to his knees next to the massive body, gasping for air. His hand was bruised and bleeding, and his ribs ached terribly, but he was alive. Boom. The eastern wall completely exploded. Massive boulders flew across the room, smashing into the dirt. A thick cloud of dust filled the air. From the center of the dust, a figure stepped out. Her golden Aegis mana was burning so intensely it lit up the entire cavern. "Zen!" Valeria screamed. Her voice was pure, psychotic panic. Zen quickly kicked the hilt of his training sword, knocking it out of the iron chain. He scrambled backward, pressing himself against the cavern wall and putting on his best scared face. "Val, I'm here," Zen yelled, waving his hand weakly. Valeria's head snapped toward him. She dashed across the room, moving so fast that she was just a blur of light. She dropped to her knees in front of him, her hands frantically grabbing his shoulders. "You're bleeding," she gasped, seeing the blood on his mouth and his bruised knuckles. She looked past him and saw the dead bloodhorn Minotaur lying on the floor. Her red eyes went wide. The golden mana around her flared violently, cracking the stone floor beneath her knees. "Who did this?" Valeria whispered. Her voice wasn't loud, it was deadly quiet. "Who killed it?" I don't know," Zen lied, making his voice shake. "It was chasing me." It swung its chain. The chain got caught on that rock over there. It then tripped and hit its head against the wall. I think it broke its own neck. Valeria stared at the beast, then looked back at Zen's bruised hands. She clearly didn't believe him for a single second. "It tripped," Valeria repeated slowly. Her red eyes looked at him, trying to dissect the truth. A high E-rank boss just tripped and died. Zen swallowed hard. "I got lucky." Valeria smiled a dark, obsessive smile that sent shivers down his spine. "I think you are hiding something from me," she said softly, "and I am going to find out what it is." Chapter 13, You're Alive. "I think you are hiding something from me," Valeria said softly. "I am going to find out what it is." Zen's heart skipped a beat, but he didn't let it show on his face. He kept his breathing shallow and irregular, playing the part of a terrified and injured student perfectly. "What do you mean, Val?" Zen asked, wincing as he held his bruised ribs. Valeria didn't answer. She just raised her right hand. Her fingers were glowing with a bright, terrifying golden Aegis mana. Without asking for permission, she pressed her palm flat against the center of his chest over his heart. "System," Zen thought instantly. "Suppress my core signature, drop it down to low F rank, make it look as shattered as possible." Executing core suppression. Warning: forced suppression while injured will cause physical discomfort. A sharp pain shot through Zen's chest, but he bit his lip to keep from screaming. Valeria closed her eyes, letting her mana flow into his body to inspect him. A second later, her eyes snapped open. The suspicion completely vanished from her face, replaced by a look of panic. "Your ribs are fractured," Valeria gasped with a trembling voice. "Your core, it's so weak, it's barely holding together. The shockwave from that monster's fall almost shattered you completely." Zen let out a weak cough. "I told you, I just got lucky." Tears welled up in Valeria's eyes. Her psychotic and interrogating expression melted away. Seeing him actually hurt and fragile pushed her Yandere instincts to go in the other direction. She wasn't an investigator anymore. She was his savior. "It's okay," Valeria whispered frantically, wrapping her arms around him. She pulled him in tight, pressing her large, soft breasts firmly against his chest as she let her warm golden mana wash over his broken ribs. "I'm here. I'm going to fix it. I'll always put you back together, Zen." Zen leaned into her hug, pretending to be exhausted. He let out a breath of relief, though his ribs throbbed from her tight grip. The golden mana felt great, soothing the pain in his side. He had played her perfectly. By making himself look weak, he fed her obsession. She loved the idea that she was the only thing keeping him alive. While she was distracted holding him, Zen opened his eyes and looked over her shoulder. The massive bloodhorn minotaur lay dead in the dirt just a few feet away. A large, dark purple heartstone had rolled out of its crushed chest cavity. Zen pretended to stumble slightly from the pain, shifting his weight and pulling Valeria a step backward. As he did, he reached down into the dirt, grabbed the mid-E rank heartstone, and smoothly slipped it into the side pocket of his canvas bag. Just as the stone dropped into his bag, a bright blue light pierced through the ceiling of the dusty cavern. "Alert! Academy emergency extraction portal detected." Valeria looked up. "The emergency extraction," she said, quickly wiping her eyes and adjusting her glasses. She grabbed Zen's hand, holding onto it tightly. "Let's go home, partner." The light enveloped them, and the dark, bloody cavern vanished. Professor Vance was packing back and forth in front of the teleportation pad. His face was pale. He looked like he was about to have a heart attack. "Any signal?" Vance yelled at the technician. "Nothing, sir," the technician panicked. "The spatial fracture is too deep. I can't locate their coordinates." The entire F-rank class was whispering nervously. Jax looked sick to his stomach, staring at the empty blue circle. Maya had both hands clamped over her mouth, looking like she was going to cry. Up on the viewing balcony, Kalen Thorne leaned against the railing, trying not to laugh out loud. His sabotage had worked perfectly. Zen Arclight and his girl would be taught a lesson, and the Academy thought it was a random computer glitch. HUMMMM. The teleportation pad suddenly whirred to life. Sparks of electricity shot out across the metal floor. "Sir, the emergency recall just locked onto a signal," the technician shouted. A massive pillar of light crashed down from the ceiling. When the light cleared, 2 figures were standing on the pad. The entire training room went so silent that you could hear a pin drop. Zen was covered in ancient dust. His lip was bleeding, his knuckles were scraped, and he was clutching his side as if his ribs were broken. Valeria was standing next to him completely unharmed, holding onto his arm with a look of concern on her face. Professor Vance was standing next to the control console, looking like he had just seen a ghost. The rest of the F-rank students were huddled together, staring at Zen and Valeria in shock. "Arclight," Professor Vance stammered, stepping forward. "Val, you're alive." "Barely," Valeria snapped, her transfer student persona snapping back into place, though she added a touch of trauma to her voice. "What kind of school is this? We were supposed to be in a training maze." Vance swallowed hard, looking terrified of the angry new girl. There was a critical system error, a spatial fracture. The pad teleported you to an unmapped high E-rank containment zone. It was a dark cave. There were skeletons everywhere, and a monster, Valeria said. "What kind of monster?" Vance demanded, pulling out his terminal to record the report. "It was huge," Zen said. "It had dark fur, iron chains wrapped around its arms, and a massive rusted battle axe." Professor Vance dropped his terminal. It clattered against the metal floor. The color completely drained from the veteran instructor's face. "A bloodhorn minotaur," Vance breathed out in absolute horror. "That is a high E-rank boss. How in the hell did you 2 survive?" The class erupted into gasps. Jax pushed his way to the front of the crowd, his eyes wide. "A minotaur? Zen, dude, how are you not dead?" Zen hunched his shoulders, making himself look small and pathetic. He rubbed his bruised ribs and looked at the floor. "We didn't fight it," Zen said, making his voice shake slightly. "The monster chased us. I thought we were going to die, but it was dragging these huge iron chains. It swung at me and the chain got caught on a rock. It tripped and slammed its head into the cavern wall and the ceiling collapsed on it." Professor Vance stared at him, his mouth slightly open. "It tripped." "It was a complete accident," Zen nodded weakly. "We just hid in the corner until the portal pulled us out." A collective sigh of relief washed over the classroom. To the students and the professor, it made perfect sense. There was no way a shattered core F-rank and a rich transfer student could kill a boss like that. Pure, dumb luck was the only explanation that made sense. "Unbelievable," Vance muttered, wiping the sweat from his forehead. "The Academy Matrix is completely shut down until further notice. Arclight, Val, you both get automatic passes for the practical. Go to the infirmary and get yourselves checked out." "Come on, partner," Valeria said softly, wrapping her arm around Zen's waist and supporting his weight. She glared at the rest of the class. "Move out of our way." The students quickly parted, giving them a wide path to the door. "Just a second, Val," Zen muttered. "My ribs." He stood up straight, letting the scared student act drop for exactly 2 seconds. He slowly turned his head and looked up at the viewing balcony. Kalen Thorne was staring down at him, sweating bullets. The mid-B-rank student was visibly shaking, realizing that his perfect, foolproof trap had failed completely. If the Academy technicians traced the sabotage back to him, he was going to be expelled and sent to a military prison. Zen didn't yell. He didn't point a finger. He just locked eyes with Kalen. Zen gave him a cold, dead look that silently said, "I know it was you, and I won't say anything yet. But trust me, I'm coming hard for you." Kalen took a step backward, stumbling away from the balcony railing. A terrifying chill ran down his spine just from Zen's look. Zen smirked faintly, then turned his head, immediately hunching his shoulders back into his weak posture as Valeria guided him out the doors. "Are you okay, Zen?" Valeria asked sweetly as they walked down the hallway toward the infirmary. "I will be," Zen said. He touched the heavy canvas bag slung over his shoulder, feeling the weight of the mid-E rank heartstone. Things are about to get very interesting. Chapter 14, Fire in the Dorm. The academy infirmary smelled like strong medicine and sterile alcohol. Zen sat on the edge of a bed, while an older nurse carefully rubbed a glowing green vitality gel over his bruised ribs. Valeria stood next to him. She had a tight grip on his left hand and glared at the nurse the entire time. "Be careful," Valeria warned. Her voice dropped into a dark tone. "You're pressing too hard." The nurse swallowed hard and nodded quickly. She quickly wrapped a bandage around Zen's chest, then stepped back. "He will be fine. He just needs some rest." Valeria's expression instantly changed back to a sweet smile as she looked at Zen. "See, I told you I would take care of you." She let go of his hand, then picked up her bag. "I need to use the restroom, Zen. I will be back in 5 minutes. Don't move." Once she walked out the door, the older nurse immediately let out a sigh of relief. She quickly unclipped Zen's chart from the bed. "All right, Arclight, you are discharged," the nurse said, rushing him along. "We have 3 students from the B-rank practical coming in with severe burns. I need this bed empty right now. Go rest in your dorm." Zen didn't argue. He grabbed his canvas bag. He double-checked that the mid-E rank heartstone was still hidden inside. He slipped out the side door of the infirmary before Valeria even made it back from the restroom. He walked back to the scrap dorms alone. He just wanted to lie down on his mattress and sleep. But as soon as he stepped into his hallway, he smelled heavy smoke. The fire alarms were turned off, but a thick layer of black soot covered the walls. A few students were standing around in the hallway, whispering to each other. Zen walked past them and stopped dead in his tracks. His room was gone. The heavy metal door was completely melted off its hinges. Inside, everything was turned to ash. His bed, his terminal, his clothes. All of it was a burnt, blackened mess. The dorm manager, an old man, was standing in the hallway shaking his head. "What happened?" Zen asked. "Electrical magical fire," the manager grunted. "A bad wire behind the wall. It fried the whole room in minutes. It was so hot it even melted the steel frame. Good thing you weren't inside, kid." Zen clenched his fists. Kalen, he thought. The mid-B-rank student had probably made another attempt and failed, so he sent his goons to burn his room down as a message. Zen walked closer, looking at the melted edges of the steel door. Something didn't add up. System, Zen thought. Analyze the burn pattern. What's the probability that a mid-B-rank student like Kalen can produce this kind of heat? Probability is less than 10%. The melting point of this military-grade steel is over 1,500 degrees Celsius. Target, Kalen Thorne's B-rank output is insufficient. The thermal residue perfectly matches a concentrated microburst of S-rank golden Aegis mana. Zen froze. It was Kalen. "Can I get another room?" Zen asked. "Sadly, no," the manager said flatly. "We are completely booked. There are no empty rooms left in the whole academy. You'll have to squat with Jax or another friend until the end of the semester." "Zen," a familiar, panicked voice echoed down the hallway. Valeria ran up to him. She pushed through the crowd of students. She looked absolutely horrified. She covered her mouth with both hands as she looked at the burnt room. "Oh my gods," Valeria gasped. "I went back to the infirmary and they said you left. Then I heard people talking about a fire in the dorms, your room. It's completely destroyed." Zen stared at her. She was a terrifyingly good actress. He remembered her leaving the infirmary for exactly 5 minutes to use the restroom. That was more than enough time for the goddess of war to blink over to the dorms, vaporize his room, and blink back to the infirmary without anyone catching her. "I don't have a place to sleep," Zen said calmly, playing along. "The manager said I have to squat with someone." Valeria's eyes flashed with a dark intensity at the idea of him living with someone else, but she quickly hid it behind a mask of fake sympathy. She reached out and grabbed his hands. "You can't sleep on someone's floor, Zen. You are injured," she said sweetly. "My family just rented a townhouse for me off campus. It is very secure. It has a spare bedroom." Zen looked at her. Her red eyes were shining with that obsessive possession behind her fake glasses. "You can stay with me," Val whispered. She stepped closer so only he could hear. "Just until you get back on your feet. I want to keep you safe." "Val, I can't," Zen replied. "Ares is a military academy. F-ranks aren't allowed to live off campus. If I leave the dorms without admin approval, Dean Alaric will expel me and send me straight to the front lines." Valeria's sweet smile remained on her lips. She reached into her skirt pocket and pulled out a silver datapad. She tapped the screen once and showed it to Zen. It was an official off-campus housing exemption. It had Zen's full name on it, but the authorization didn't come from the academy. It bore the unforgeable, glowing seal of Vanguard High Command, with Dean Alaric's personal digital signature tacked on at the bottom as a mere formality. "Don't worry about the dean," Valeria said happily. "I used my family's Vanguard clearance to issue the exemption directly through High Command while you were in the infirmary. The dean had absolutely no choice but to sign the academy's copy. I told him you needed a quiet, secure environment to recover." Zen stared at the digital signature. The dean hadn't agreed to anything. Valeria had probably used her VIP clearance to override the entire academy's administration. She had manipulated the entire situation perfectly. She burned his room down, blocked off the other dorms, and strong-armed the head of the academy. Also, Zen would have absolutely no choice but to go home with her. Zen knew it was a trap. She was locking him in her golden cage. But as he looked at her, he remembered what the system had told him yesterday. He couldn't forcefully extract his soul fragment from her because of her overwhelming power. The only way to siphon his body, fragment back, was through intense, prolonged intimacy and proximity. He needed to get close to her. He needed to make her drop her guard, all while keeping his identity as the Emperor a total secret. Living with her was playing with fire, but it was the most efficient way to steal his power back. Plus, he needed a highly secure place to absorb the boss core tonight. "Okay, Val," Zen sighed, letting his shoulders drop in fake defeat. "Thank you, I'll stay with you." Valeria beamed. It was a happy, victorious smile. She hooked her arm through his, completely ignoring the burnt ashes of his life behind them. "Let's go home, partner," she said. Chapter 15, 1 million monocredits. The townhouse was located in the wealthy ring of District 7. It did not look like the kind of place a student would rent. It looked like a fortress. The walls were made of stone that had been heavily reinforced. As soon as Zen walked through the front door, he could feel the magical protections humming in the air. Valeria locked the door behind them. The sound of the deadbolt clicking shut was loud in the house. "I will show you to your room," Valeria said with a smile, taking his bag and leading him upstairs. She opened the door to a large, luxurious bedroom. The bed was enormous and the sheets were made of silk. There was a private bathroom. It was even nicer than the rooms Zen used to have 500 years ago when he was an emperor. "My room is across the hall," Valeria said, leaning against the doorframe. "If you need anything, anything at all, just call my name." "I just need to sleep, Val," Zen said, sitting down on the edge of the bed. "Get some rest," she whispered softly. She slowly closed the door, leaving him alone in the room. Zen waited for 10 minutes. He listened carefully until he heard the door across the hall close. He did not trust Valeria. He stood up, grabbed his canvas bag, and pulled out his GE burner drone. Zen tapped the drone's power rune and manually accessed its optical sensors through his terminal interface. He used the drone's infrared camera to sweep the entire room and scan for electronics, the air vents, the mirrors, and the corners of the ceiling. Nothing. There were no hidden cameras, no listening bugs. "System," Zen thought. What is the probability of Vanguard surveillance inside this specific house? Probability, 0%. The goddess of war is highly territorial. She values absolute privacy in her personal domain and would not allow Vanguard High Command to monitor her living quarters. Good, Zen smirked in the dark. He put the drone down and pulled out the dark purple heartstone. It was full of energy. He sat cross-legged on the floor, holding the stone in both hands. System, initiate absorption, Zen ordered. Processing mid-E rank boss core. A violent wave of heat rushed up Zen's arms and slammed into his chest. This core was much stronger than the ones from the sewers. It felt like swallowing a volcano. Sweat poured down his face as he forced his body to take in the energy. Absorption complete. Core fracture repaired by 5%. Congratulations, you have reached high F rank. Zen opened his eyes. The purple stone in his hands crumbled into useless gray dust. He felt amazing. The pain in his ribs was gone, healed by the surge of magic. Zen flexed his hands in the dark bedroom, feeling the difference. His muscles weren't screaming anymore. His ribs had quieted to a dull, manageable ache. High F rank. It wasn't much, but it better. System, Zen thought. Project my cultivation trajectory. If I keep clearing dungeons at this pace, how long until I hit my original Emperor level rank? Calculating long-term trajectory based on current soul architecture. Projected ceiling reached at low D rank. Estimated time to reach ceiling at current pace, 4-6 weeks. Zen frowned. That's it, low D rank. Clarification required. Heartstones repair the structural integrity of your mana core. The vessel, they fill cracks. They reinforce walls. However, the soul fragments currently held by the 5 goddesses are not structural. They are the fuel source inside the vessel. Analogy, you are rebuilding an engine. Heartstones are the metal and the bolts. Without them, the engine collapses. But the fragments are the combustion. Without them, the engine sits perfectly assembled and does absolutely nothing. At low D rank, your vessel will be fully rebuilt. You will be strong enough to survive in this world without constant risk of death. But your maximum output will be permanently capped at approximately 0.3% of your original Emperor level power. You will be a well-constructed engine with no fuel, forever. Zen stared at the ceiling. So the dungeons keep me alive, he thought slowly. But the goddesses are the only ones who can actually give me my power back. Affirmative, dual cultivation is not optional. It is the only mechanism that can transfer a soul fragment from an anchored host back to its origin point. Heartstone cultivation and dual cultivation are not competing paths. They are sequential requirements. Phase 1, rebuild the vessel. Phase 2, refuel it. And right now I'm still in Phase 1, Zen muttered. Correct. You have approximately 96% of Phase 1 remaining. Encouraging as always, Zen said flatly. He walked over to the desk, picked up the hacked GE drone. He tapped the power rune again, and the little silver ball floated up, its red light blinking on. Zen didn't just want to survive anymore. He wanted to get back at Kaelin Thorne. But first, he needed to keep his audience engaged to keep the credits rolling in. System, Zen said. Log into the Ghost Scrapper account. Let's do a quick shadowboxing stream for the fans. They wanted to see the footwork. Ghost Scrapper is now live. Notifying 14,850 followers. Instantly, the viewer count spiked. The chat box started moving at light speed. User 992. He's alive. The legend returns. Scraprat, bro, are you going back to the sewers? Metalhead, show us that parry stance again. I got 1,000 credits ready. Zen smirked, standing in the center of the room. He made sure the camera angle was tight, showing only his torso and legs so the expensive bedroom background wouldn't give away his location. No dungeons tonight, Zen whispered, keeping his voice extremely low so Valeria wouldn't hear him across the hall. Just some combat theory. Watch my feet. He moved into the Emperor's stride, making a perfect, fast turn. Then he did the Vanguard parry. He moved smoothly and carefully without using any mana. The chat went absolutely wild, spamming small donations and cheers. After 10 minutes of basic forms, Zen stopped. He gave a casual wave toward the drone's lens, completely confident in the hacked digital blur masking his identity on the live feed. That's it for tonight. Stay sharp. System end stream. Zen caught the drone as the red light clicked off. He put it back in his bag, turned off the lights, and laid down on the silk bed. Zen closed his eyes in the dark bedroom. His ribs had quieted. His core was stable. The silk sheets felt almost offensive against his bruised skin. Sleep was about 40 seconds away. Notification. GE Network Algorithm Flag. Account. Ghost Scrapper. Reason. Anomalous movement vectors. 72 independent users have submitted reports tagging your stream for cheating/hacking and exploiting glitches. Zen opened one eye. Cheating? Seriously. Update. Standard automated review bypassed. Encrypted shadowlog decrypted via incoming data spike. Alert. The GE backend algorithm did not process the reports as standard cheating. It cross-referenced your exact footwork angles against a hidden executive database. Your movements triggered a 99% match for Imperial Martial Paradigm. Flag was escalated directly to manual oversight. Manual oversight at the GE Network executive level is handled exclusively by the Omni-Domain Spymaster. Both eyes open now. Zen's pulse instantly spiked. A hidden database just for Imperial footwork, Zen thought, his blood running cold. Nix hardwired the entire global network to hunt for me. How long ago did this flag go up? The algorithm flagged the stream 31 minutes after your very first broadcast. The Spymaster personally reviewed the footage 11 minutes after that. She's already seen it, Zen thought, his entire body going very still. That was 2 days ago. Affirmative. Then why hasn't she moved yet? Analyzing behavioral pattern of the Spymaster based on historical data. Conclusion, she does not move on incomplete information. She is watching. She is building a profile. She wants to be certain before she acts, because acting prematurely and being wrong is the one outcome she cannot tolerate. Additionally, your soul fragment resonance has not fully activated through the GE feed. She suspects. She does not yet know. There is a difference, and she is aware of that difference. Zen stared at the ceiling. New message received. Sender, unknown, origin. Omni-domain, routed through 44 proxy servers. Attached, 1 million monocredits. Transferred directly to Ghost Scrapper account. Message body, you fight just like him. I am coming to find you. The bedroom was very quiet. There it is, Zen thought. The soul fragment resonated. She knows. How long do I have? Unknown. The Spymaster operates on her own timeline. She will not rush. She will not warn you again. Probability that she is already watching this room, 34%. Zen looked slowly at the ceiling, at the walls, at the mirror above the desk. Why am I not surprised? Zen muttered dryly to the empty room. Chapter 16, Dodging a Bullet. The next morning, Zen woke up to the smell of food. Real, expensive food, not synthetic. He walked downstairs to find Valeria in the kitchen. She was wearing her academy uniform, but with an apron around her waist. She was humming a happy tune while cooking eggs and bacon. Good morning, Zen, Valeria said with a smile as she placed a plate of food on the table for him. Did you sleep well? I did, Zen said, sitting down. Thank you for the food, Val. Eat up, she said, resting her chin on her hands and watching him intensely. You need your strength. We have a day at the academy today. Zen took a bite of the bacon. It was incredibly good. But as he ate, he suddenly realized something. Valeria was not just playing house or being nice. If she fed him high-quality food every morning, he would never have a reason to go to the academy cafeteria. She was trying to remove every possible reason for him to interact with other people. After eating and dressing up, they walked to the Ares Military Academy together. Valeria kept her arm linked with his the entire way. But as soon as they got to the campus, Zen realized something was wrong. The campus was totally silent. None of the students were talking or laughing. Everyone was in the courtyard, staring up at the sky. Zen looked up and saw 3 big, black Vanguard military dropships hovering above the academy. "What is going on?" Jax whispered, running up to Zen and Val in the courtyard. He looked scared. "The military just locked down the school. Nobody is allowed to leave." Before Zen could answer, the bay doors of the dropships opened. Dozens of elite soldiers in dark gray armor dropped down into the courtyard, holding high-tech monorifles. They quickly formed a perimeter around the students. A tall man in a trench coat stepped out of the lead ship, floating down to the ground using wind magic. He had a scar on his face and a silver Inquisition badge pinned on his chest. Professor Vance and Dean Alaric rushed forward, bowing nervously to the man. "Inquisitor," Dean Alaric greeted with a confident smile. "We were not expecting the Vanguard. How can the Academy serve you?" The Inquisitor ignored the Dean. He held up a glowing artifact that amplified his voice. "Yesterday, the Academy experienced a spatial fracture," the Inquisitor's voice boomed. "Our satellites detected an S-rank magical anomaly from inside that unmapped zone. The energy signature was ancient, unregistered." Zen's blood ran cold. They were not here to investigate the teleportation pad malfunction or Kalen's possible sabotage. They were here because of the primordial void breathing Zen had used to punch the Minotaur. "We are locking down this academy," the Inquisitor announced, his cold eyes sweeping over the terrified students. "An ancient threat has breached our domain, and we are going to find out exactly how it got here." Right next to Zen, Valeria's grip on his arm tightened painfully. "An ancient threat?" Valeria whispered, her eyes narrowing behind her glasses. A dark, terrifying aura began to leak from her body. "Interesting." The Vanguard Inquisitor stood in the middle of the courtyard. The wind was blowing his dark trench coat around his legs. He was holding a glowing white crystal in his hand. "This is a soul-measuring stone," the Inquisitor announced in a magically amplified voice. "It is calibrated to detect any traces of ancient, S-rank mana. Every student will step forward and place their hand on it." A wave of panic rushed through the students. "System," Zen thought, his heart beating fast. "My core is only high F-rank, but if that stone touches me, it will pick up the S-rank residue left behind by the primordial void breathing. Plus, a suddenly healed core will blow my cover entirely. Warning, the artifact will expose your true mana signature. Probability of capture, 99%. "Can you hide it?" Zen asked. "Affirmative. I can execute a total core inversion to mask your signature. Warning, forcing your healed core to invert will cause extreme physical agony." "Do it," Zen ordered. Before the Inquisitor could call the first name, Kalen Thorne pushed his way out of the crowd. He was sweating. Kalen knew he had hacked the teleportation pad yesterday. He was terrified the Inquisitor was here to investigate the malfunction. He needed a distraction immediately. "Sir," Kalen yelled, pointing a shaking finger directly at Zen and Valeria. It was them. They were the only ones in the unmapped zone yesterday. If there is an ancient threat, they are hiding it. The entire courtyard turned to look at Zen and Valeria. The Inquisitor's cold eyes locked onto Zen. He didn't ask any questions. He moved fast, grabbing Zen by the collar and slamming the glowing crystal against Zen's chest. "Let's see what you are hiding, boy," the Inquisitor sneered. "System now," Zen thought. Executing total core inversion. It felt like a bomb went off inside Zen's chest. His mana core violently twisted itself inside out. The pain was blinding. Zen gasped, his eyes rolling back. He coughed up a mouthful of blood, splattering it across the Inquisitor's boots. Zen's legs gave out, and he collapsed to his knees. The soul-measuring stone didn't turn bright with S-rank power. It flickered and turned a dull, pathetic gray. "A dying low F-rank," the Inquisitor grunted in disgust, looking at the stone. "His core is completely broken. He couldn't cast an S-rank spell if his life depended on it." but seeing Zen fall to his knees and cough up blood made Valeria snap. Her possessive, Yandere instincts violently flared up. Crack. The thick glass of her fake spectacles split right down the middle. A faint red light glowed in her eyes. She didn't release her S-rank mana. That would have triggered the stone. Instead, she released a microburst of pure, suffocating killing intent directly into the Inquisitor's mind. The Inquisitor froze. The blood drained from his scarred face. Every survival instinct in his veteran body screamed at him. He felt like an invisible, massive blade was pressed directly against his spine. Valeria stepped forward and slapped the Inquisitor's hand away from Zen. With her other hand, she quickly reached into her pocket and brought out a small, black metal card. She held it up just high enough for the Inquisitor to see. It was a classified Vanguard VIP crest. The Inquisitor's eyes went wide. He suddenly understood. This transfer student was highly protected Vanguard royalty, and the terrifying killing intent he felt was coming from her invisible, elite bodyguards hiding in the shadows. "Do not touch him again," Valeria whispered. Her voice was calm, but it held a promise of death. "My apologies, miss," the Inquisitor stammered as he stepped back. He turned and glared furiously at Kaelin Thorne. "Are you trying to waste my time, boy? Get out of my sight." Kaelin turned pale, shrinking back into the crowd, looking like an absolute fool. The Inquisitor cleared his throat, straightening his posture as he looked at Dean Alaric. "The scan continues. Line the rest of them up." Dean Alaric nodded nervously, wiping sweat from his forehead. "All right, you heard him. Orderly lines, step forward one at a time. Those who have already been cleared are dismissed for the lunch period." As the rest of the courtyard groaned and shuffled forward in a tense queue, Jax pushed through the crowd, running straight toward Zen. Jax looked terrified for his best friend. "Zen, dude, are you okay?" Jax panicked, reaching down to grab Zen's arm and help him up. Valeria's cracked glasses caught the light. She stepped between them, her possessive aura flaring again. She hissed at Jax like a territorial predator. "Don't touch him. I am taking him home." Zen wiped the blood from his mouth. Valeria was currently in hyper mode and wanted to isolate him. But if he let her scare Jax away, he would lose his only friend and his best source of information in the academy. He had to stop it. Zen stood up straight, ignoring the throbbing pain in his chest. He looked at her. He didn't look like a weak student anymore. For exactly 1 second, he let his cold, dominant emperor persona bleed through. "Val, enough," Zen commanded, his voice deep and absolute. "He is my friend, he stays." Valeria froze. A visible shiver ran down her spine. Instead of getting angry, a dark blush spread through her cheeks. The absolute authority in his voice was exactly how the Emperor used to speak to her. She immediately lowered her head, acting perfectly submissive. "Yes, Zen, I'm sorry." Jax stared at Valeria, then at Zen, looking completely confused. But Zen just patted Jax on the shoulder. Later that day, during their lunch period, the three of them sat together. Valeria sat entirely too close to Zen, but she stayed quiet, allowing Jax to talk. "You really dodged a bullet, man," Jax whispered, leaning over the table. "Kaelin is strutting around the hallways like a king today. The rumor mill on the student forums is going crazy." "What are they saying?" "Word is his family's lawyers already strong-armed the school this morning," Jax replied, keeping his voice low. "People are whispering that they scrubbed the teleportation logs before the Vanguard even landed. Everyone suspects he hacked the pad yesterday that caused the spatial fracture, but because there's no digital proof left, he is completely untouchable." Zen looked across the cafeteria. Kaelin was sitting with his rich friends, laughing loudly. "Nobody is untouchable," Zen said coldly. "What class do we have next?" "Melee Arts and Aura Flow," Jax said, checking his terminal. "With Instructor Graves, it's basically a weapon sparring class." Zen smirked. "Perfect. Chapter 17, I know it's you." Instructor Graves was a strict, old-school veteran. He hated arrogant students and valued perfect technique over raw mana output. During class, He had the students practice the Vanguard heavy cleave on reinforced training dummies. Kalen stepped up. He completely ignored the proper footwork and just blasted the dummy with his raw B-rank mana. The dummy shattered. Kalen looked incredibly smug, expecting praise. Instructor Graves sighed. Sloppy. In a real fight against an equal opponent, your terrible balance would get you killed. Kalen got defensive and arrogant. He spotted Zen in the crowd and sneered. Raw power is all that matters, instructor. Why don't you let me demonstrate on Arclight? He survived a high E-rank dungeon. Surely he can hold a blocking pad for one of my swings. Instructor Graves allowed it strictly as a single-strike blocking drill. Zen was given a heavy kinetic absorption shield. Kalen was given a wooden training greatsword. It was not a spar, so the rank gap was legally allowed for a demonstration. Kalen gripped the wooden sword. He fully intended to channel a hidden burst of B-rank mana into the blade at the last millisecond to break Zen's arms and make it look like an accident. Kalen charged and swung with devastating force. Zen didn't brace. He used his centuries of knowledge of weapon mastery, and the Emperor's tried to shift his footing by 2 inches. As the massive wooden blade came down, Zen casually angled the edge of his shield to strike the exact harmonic weak point of Kalen's terrible, unbalanced swing. Because Zen didn't block the force, but redirected it, all of Kalen's explosive B-rank momentum violently backfired. Snap! The wooden sword shattered into splinters. The kinetic whiplash violently disarmed Kalen, lifting his feet off the ground and throwing him flat on his back in the middle of the training mat. He laid there gasping for air. The entire class went silent. Zen didn't use any magic. He didn't even break a sweat. He just looked down at Kalen coldly and handed the shield back to the instructor. Instructor Graves smirked, looking at Kalen on the floor. As I said, sloppy. The academy day finally ended. Valeria insisted they go straight back to her townhouse so Zen could rest. Once they were inside, she walked Zen to his bedroom. Get some sleep, partner, she said sweetly, closing his door. But Valeria didn't go to her room. She walked down the hallway, pressed her hand against a hidden panel on the wall, and stepped into a warded, soundproof panic room. The sweet, caring expression instantly vanished from her face. She looked like the cold, ruthless goddess of war once again. She walked over to a metal table and turned on a high-tech holographic communicator. 4 pillars of light shot up into the darkroom. The projections of the other 4 goddesses flickered to life. To her left was Nyx, the spy master. Her avatar was made of swirling purple data streams. Next to her was the healer, wearing a pristine white lab coat over a Sanctum Domain uniform. On the right was Lyra, the Grand Mage, holding a staff of pure starlight. And in the center, wearing a crown of golden fire, was the Empress. The air in the room was instantly toxic. The 5 women disliked each other, united only by their shared grief and their obsessive love for the dead Emperor. We do not have time, the Empress said, her voice echoing with authority. The Void Singularity, the entity that killed him 500 years ago, is showing microfractures across the globe. We need to prepare our armies. I am already tracking it, Nyx said, her purple digital eyes narrowing as she looked directly at Valeria's hologram. But my satellites picked up something else yesterday. A massive, unregistered S-rank anomaly inside District 7, right in your backyard, Valeria. Valeria kept her face perfectly blank. She adjusted her cracked glasses. It was nothing, Valeria lied smoothly. A group of scavengers set off an unstable magical artifact in the unmapped zone. My vanguard dealt with it. Nyx tilted her head, clearly not believing her. Is that so? Stay out of my territory, Nyx, Valeria warned, her voice dropping into a deadly growl. I have everything under control. Valeria ended the connection. The holographic projections died. The panic room went dark. Valeria stood alone, her military bracer casting a faint blue glow across her face. She reached into her jacket pocket and pulled out a small, leather-bound notebook. It was old, genuinely old, 5 centuries old, and the cover was stamped with the Imperial Arclight seal. She had carried it through every war, every political massacre, every sleepless night of the last 500 years. She sat down at the metal table and opened it to a fresh page. She wrote the date at the top. Then she began a list. Observed, subject uses the Emperor's stride with flawless precision. No training program in any of the 5 domains teaches this technique. It was never written down. I taught it to no one. He taught only himself. Observed, subject's mana signature is shattered, fragmented, and suppressed. But the ambient resonance pattern during the void breathing pulse was not F-rank. It was ancient. It was mine. It was his. Observed, a high E-rank bloodhorn minotaur was found dead with its spine snapped in a way that is physically inconsistent with a fall. The kinetic angle of the fracture matches a focused downward strike from an opponent standing approximately 170 centimeters tall. Observed, subject's mana density increased overnight without any reported cultivation activity. Core repair of this nature requires significant raw mana intake. He lied about where he was. Observed, subject redirected a B-rank kinetic strike using pure footwork and a blunt training sword. No F-rank student in academy history has done this. She stopped writing. She looked at the list for a long time. Then, slowly, she closed the notebook and pressed it flat against her chest. She closed her eyes, and her expression wasn't the cold, calculated face of the goddess of war. It was something much more fragile, much more dangerous. "I know it's you," Valeria whispered to the empty room. Her voice was barely a sound. "I have known since the dungeon, since the moment you slid past that blast wave and the dust caught in your hair and you looked annoyed instead of scared." She opened her eyes. "But if I tell you that I know," she paused, pressing the notebook harder against her chest. "You will run, you will plan. You will find a way to slip out of my hands again because that is what you always do." A tear tracked down her cheek. She didn't wipe it away. "So I will be patient," she whispered. "I will watch, I will wait, and I will let you think you are the one hunting." She stood up, straightened her uniform, and walked back out into the hallway. By the time her hand touched the door of his bedroom to check on him, her face was perfectly soft. Perfectly sweet. Perfectly terrifying. Chapter 18, Kalen's Stream. The pain was the first and only thing Zen registered. It wasn't just the agonizing aftermath of the total core inversion anymore. It was the heavy, brutal price of his own stubborn pride. Executing a flawless kinetic redirection against Kalen Thorne's B-rank strike earlier that afternoon without a single drop of mana to reinforce his own body had been a calculated, but terrible, idea. The sheer kinetic recoil of shattering that heavy wooden greatsword had created microfractures across 3 of Zen's ribs. He had used centuries of honed willpower to keep his face completely blank in front of instructor Graves. He hadn't limped on the walk out of the academy. He had played the stoic, unfazed emperor perfectly. But the second Valeria had closed the heavy oak door to his bedroom, his legs had completely given out. Now, it felt like someone had poured boiling battery, acid directly into his chest cavity. "System," Zen groaned in his mind, squeezing his eyes shut as he lay perfectly still on the mattress. "Give me a status report, now." Warning, host body has sustained massive tissue and skeletal damage. Total core inversion cooldown timer activated. 44 hours, 18 minutes remaining. "I know it hurts," Zen thought, grinding his teeth until his jaw popped. "Just revert the inversion. My cover is safe for now. The Inquisitor bought the F-rank act. Turn it back." Negative. Attempting to force the core to re-invert before the cooldown expires will result in catastrophic mana organ failure and immediate physical disintegration. "Fantastic," Zen muttered aloud, letting his head fall back against the pillows. "So I am officially stuck as a pathetic weakling for the next 2 days." The heavy door to the bedroom clicked open. Valeria walked in, carrying a polished silver tray with a steaming bowl of broth and a glass of water. She had changed out of her blood-stained Vanguard uniform and was wearing an oversized, gray Academy t-shirt. One from the expensive, brand-new wardrobe she had obsessively bought for him after his dorm burned down. It was a terrifyingly domestic look for a woman who, just a few hours ago, had threatened to murder a high-ranking inquisitor with nothing but her mind. "You're awake, my love," Valeria said softly. Her voice was like smooth honey, but her crimson eyes were dark and fixed on him with the intensity of a starving predator. "I am," Zen replied, keeping his tone carefully neutral to hide the sharp, violent spike of agony radiating from his ribs. She set the tray on the nightstand and sat on the very edge of the mattress. She didn't speak immediately. She just reached out, her cool fingers gently tracing the side of his jawline, brushing a stray lock of hair from his forehead. As she sat there, watching him eat the warm broth, she began to hum. It was a low, melodic tune, barely louder than a whisper. Zen stopped chewing for a fraction of a second. He recognized the melody immediately. It was an old imperial marching song, a tune he had drunkenly composed on a lute during a military campaign 5 centuries ago. She didn't know he had written it. She just knew it was from his era. Watching the most dangerous woman alive, a goddess capable of snapping a boss monster's spine, sitting in an oversized t-shirt humming his old song. It was a quiet, unsettlingly human moment. "You shouldn't have moved," Valeria finally said softly, her voice breaking the quiet stillness. "You shouldn't even be talking right now. You pushed yourself far too hard today. I should have snapped that thorn boy's neck in the courtyard when I had the chance." "He embarrassed himself in the sparring hall, Val," Zen said, forcing a weak, dismissive smile. "Let it go." "My job is not to let things go," Valeria corrected seamlessly. She said it with a chilling calmness, as if they were discussing the weather rather than cold-blooded murder. "I am keeping you here. You are not leaving this bed for a week." "I can't do that," Zen pointed out, shifting slightly and ignoring the flare of pain. "We have the midterm extraction tomorrow morning." Valeria frowned deeply, her hand stopping its gentle motion on his cheek. The Vanguard locked down the campus. Dean Alaric was supposed to suspend all combat activities. "I don't care about the Academy's schedule, Zen. You are hurt. I can buy that entire school tomorrow and burn it to the ground by noon if I want to." "They didn't suspend it, Val. Didn't you see the Academy broadcast on our way back?" Zen asked. "The Vanguard Inquisitor isn't delaying the midterm. He ordered the Dean to move it up to tomorrow morning." Valeria's eyes narrowed dangerously. Why would they force a combat exam during a military lockdown? "Because it's a rat trap," Zen explained coldly. "The Inquisitor knows the soul-measuring stone failed, but he still believes an ancient S-rank anomaly is hiding among the student body. He wants us thrown into a high-stress, dangerous combat scenario. The Vanguard is going to watch the artificial dungeon cameras from the control room, hopping whoever the anomaly is panics, and uses their true power to survive." Valeria let out a low, predatory hiss. "Then you absolutely are not going. If you step into that dungeon and get hurt, I will slaughter the entire Vanguard monitoring team." "If I miss it, I fail the semester," Zen countered smoothly. "If I fail, they expel me. Then I lose all I've worked hard for. You don't want me to fail and lose everything I've worked for, do you?" Valeria bit her lower lip. She hated it when he used flawless logic against her possessiveness. "Fine," she whispered, clearly unhappy with the compromise. "But I am not letting you be on your own. And if anyone looks at you wrong, or if that thorn boy even breathes in your direction, I am stepping in and removing his head." "Deal," Zen agreed quickly. "Now go take a shower. You smell like Vanguard-issue smoke bombs and dried blood." Valeria actually blushed, looking down at her hands like a scolded maiden. "I will be quick. Do not move. Eat your soup." She leaned in, kissed his forehead lingeringly, and walked into the adjoining bathroom. The moment he heard the shower water running, Zen's tired, weak expression vanished entirely. He reached under his pillow and pulled out his encrypted terminal. The screen lit up, showing 99 missed messages. All of them were from Jax. Zen quickly opened the secure chat protocol. "Jax, dude, are you alive?" Jax, Zen, answer me. Do I need to call the cops? Wait, her parents are super rich for her to have a high-level security card. Who do I call to arrest that kind of powerful person? Zen typed back with his good hand, his fingers moving rapidly. Zen, I'm alive, Jax, just bruised. What's the situation at the school? The reply came back instantly. Jax, oh thank God. Bro, the situation is bad. Like, really bad. Everyone is freaking out that the dean pushed the midterm to tomorrow just because of the Vanguard investigation. And Kalen is losing his damn mind. He is streaming right now to his rich kid fan club. Zen, send the link. Jax, I clipped the important part. Watch it. He's plotting something psycho tomorrow to get back at you for breaking his sword. Zen tapped the video file Jax sent. Kalen's smug, intensely punchable face filled the screen. He was sitting in his lavish, oversized dorm room, a thick medical bandage wrapped around his wrist from where Zen had violently disarmed him. That trash thinks he got lucky today, Kalen sneered to his camera, his face flushed with arrogant anger. But tomorrow is the midterm extraction. Real monsters, real stakes. No instructors holding our hands. We'll see how long Arclight lasts when the training wheels come off. I've got a very special surprise waiting for him. Zen paused the video. Arrogant idiot, he typed to Jax. Jax, keep watching. Look at the background at timestamp 0:57. Look at the crate. Zen scrubbed the video forward. Behind Kalen, sitting on a plush velvet chair, was a heavy, reinforced steel crate. Jax, zoom in on the lock mechanism. Zen enhanced the image, zooming past Kalen's shoulder. There was a glowing, neon green snake logo etched deeply into the metal clasp of the crate. Zen, that is a black market syndicate logo. Jax, exactly, that's the Viper's Den. It's a high-end illegal dealer out in District 7. My cousin used to run numbers for them. They sell military-grade contraband. Kalen bought something highly illegal right before our midterm, and we have no idea what he has planned. Chapter 19, Cipher. Zen stared at the glowing green snake on his terminal screen, his mind racing. Good eye, Jax, seriously. Don't worry about it, I'll handle it. Jax, handle it how? Zen, I might have scraped into low E rank on the Aegis path, and sure, I can take a hit, but you are F rank. If he bought an assassin drone or a poison trap, my shield won't mean a damn thing. We are literally dead. We should report him to the dean. Zen, the dean won't do anything against the Thorn family without proof. I said I will handle it. Go to sleep and get your gear ready for tomorrow. Zen closed the chat application. His chest throbbed with a fresh wave of pain, but his brain was operating at superhuman speeds. If Kalen had purchased a black market weapon, Zen needed to know exactly what it was before they stepped foot into that dungeon. He couldn't plan a counter-strategy blind. He booted up his proxy network, routing his connection through a dozen fake IP addresses across the hyper-advanced Omni domain. Once his digital signature was fully masked, he logged into the dark web forums, adopting the anonymous persona of the Ghost Scrapper. The Viper's Den didn't have a public catalog. You couldn't just browse their wares. They operated strictly through anonymous information brokers. Zen searched the forum and found the primary broker for District 7. The user's handle was Cipher. Instead of a standard contact page, Cipher had an active bounty board. It was a test of intelligence. If you wanted to do business with him, you had to prove you weren't a waste of time. Zen clicked the topmost bounty. Uncrackable ancient cipher. Reward, 100,000 mana credits. A high-resolution image loaded on the screen. It was a photograph of a crumbling stone tablet covered in jagged, glowing runes. Zen almost laughed out loud. It wasn't a complex, mystical cipher at all. It was imperial shorthand. It was the exact, lazy dialect Zen used to write his personal grocery lists 500 years ago. Zen opened a direct message to Cipher and typed out the translation in less than 10 seconds. Ghost Scrapper, the tablet says, do not eat the red berries by the river, they give the horses severe diarrhea. You owe me 100,000 credits. There was a long pause. A full minute went by without a typing indicator. Cipher, what the actual hell? Who are you? Dozens of top-tier Vanguard cryptographers have been working on that for a month. Ghost Scrapper, I am the guy who clears unmapped zones. Keep the credits. I don't want your money. I want a trade. Cipher, you're the Ghost Scrapper. The one who pulled that crazy footwork that's making the whole network go wild. Damn. All right, you officially have my attention. What do you want? Ghost Scrapper, a purchase log, Kalen Thorne. A steel crate was delivered to his academy dorm from the Viper's Den a few hours ago. Tell me exactly what is inside it. Cipher, no way. That is strict client confidentiality. The Viper's Den syndicate will cut my head off and mount it on a spike if I leak their sales ledgers. Ghost Scrapper, you owe me 100,000 credits. I can also translate the other 3 ancient tablets currently sitting on your bounty board right now. Or I can log off, walk away, and you can spend another month staring at a warning about horse diarrhea. Your choice. There was another long pause. The digital cursor blinked rhythmically on the screen. Cipher, you drive a hard bargain, Scrapper. Give me 2 minutes to bypass the ledger encryption. Zen waited, listening to the muffled sound of the shower running in the next room. Cipher, got it. Thorne purchased a grade A agrolure. It is a highly illegal dungeon artifact. Once activated, it emits a silent magical frequency that drives monsters completely insane and pulls them toward a specific target within a half-mile radius. Zen smirked as he thought to himself. So he plans to plant it on my gear or Jax's gear during the extraction and let the monsters do his dirty work while the Vanguard watches. Pathetic and unoriginal. Ghost Scrapper, I appreciate the intel, Cipher. We're square. Zen moved his thumb to close the connection. Cipher, wait, Scrapper. One more thing. Consider this a freebie because I like your style. Ghost Scrapper, I'm listening. Cipher, Thorne didn't buy it directly. He used a third-party runner to pick it up and deliver it to the dorms. Smart kid. Keeps his hands clean legally if the Vanguard ever traces the sale. Ghost Scrapper, okay. Cipher, so, the runner who brought that lure into the city. He told the dealer the artifact was acting weird. It wasn't just emitting a standard aggro frequency. Ghost Scrapper, define weird. Cipher, he said it was leaking some kind of ancient energy, purple energy. It gave the runner a massive nosebleed and a blinding migraine just holding the box. If Thorne activates that thing at any time, he has absolutely no idea what he's actually setting off. Watch your back. Zen's blood ran completely cold. Purple energy. System, Zen thought, his heart hammering violently against his bruised ribs, sending spikes of agony through his chest. Run a cross-reference on ancient artifacts leaking purple energy. Warning, keyword match confirmed. Probability of standard mana leakage, 0%. Probability of void singularity corruption, 100%. Zen's breath hitched in his throat. It wasn't just an agrolure. The black market dealer had unknowingly sold Kalen a corrupted artifact. Kalen had just bought a reality-tearing void bomb, and he was planning to set it off inside the artificial academy dungeon tomorrow morning. I have to warn Jax, Zen muttered, his fingers flying across the terminal screen to reopen the secure chat. Click. The sound of the bathroom door opening echoed loudly in the quiet bedroom. The running water had stopped. Zen had been so intensely focused on the screen, he hadn't even noticed. Zen didn't try to slam the terminal shut and shove it under the pillow. If he hesitated for even a fraction of a second, her Yandere paranoia would completely take over. Instead, he tapped the screen with his thumb, instantly closing the dark web proxy and bringing Jax's encrypted chat log back to the front. The video of Kalen Thorne's arrogant livestream was paused directly on the screen. Valeria stood in the doorway. She was wearing a plush white towel wrapped tightly around her torso, water dripping from her long, dark hair down her bare shoulders. But there was absolutely nothing soft about her expression. Her crimson-red eyes were glowing brightly in the dim light of the bedroom, locked dead onto the bright, encrypted screen of his terminal. Her possessive, murderous aura flooded the room, dropping the temperature by 10 degrees in an instant. She took a slow, deliberate step forward. "Zen," Valeria whispered, her voice dropping to a dangerously quiet pitch. "What are you looking at?" Chapter 20, Where You Go, I Go. "Zen," Valeria whispered, her voice dropping to a dangerously quiet pitch. "What are you looking at?" "I am looking at a dead man walking," Zen said coldly, handing the terminal directly to her. Valeria blinked, her glowing red eyes shifting from Zen's face to the screen. The suffocating, murderous pressure in the room lessened slightly, but she still didn't drop her guard. She took the terminal and hit play on the video. Kaylin's smug voice filled the quiet bedroom. "We'll see how long Arclight lasts when the training wheels come off. I've got a very special surprise waiting for him." Valeria's expression darkened. The plush white towel around her torso seemed to freeze as her aura shifted from suspicious to pure, unfiltered rage. Her grip on the terminal tightened enough to make the reinforced casing creak. "This thorn rat dares to threaten you while you are injured," Valeria hissed, her fangs slightly extending. "I will go to his dorm right now. I will rip his limbs off and mount his head on the academy gates." "No, you won't," Zen commanded softly, reaching out to gently place his hand over hers. Valeria shuddered at his touch, the anger in her eyes melting into immediate submission. She looked at him, waiting for his next words. "If you kill a high-profile noble tonight, the Vanguard will lock down the entire district," Zen explained. "The midterm will be cancelled entirely. Dean Alaric will use the chaos as an excuse for some stupid decision that would affect everyone, including me. I need to pass this exam, Val. It's about pride." Zen tapped the center of his bruised chest, right over his inverted core. "He embarrassed me today by forcing me to redirect his strike," Zen lied smoothly. "I am going to walk into that zone tomorrow, and I am going to watch him fail his own exam. I want him humiliated legally and publicly." Valeria stared into his eyes for a long moment. She loved when he acted ruthless. It reminded her so much of the Emperor. A dark smile finally crept onto her lips. "Fine," she whispered, leaning in and pressing a soft kiss to his cheek. "You can play your school games tomorrow, but I am coming with you." Zen raised an eyebrow, playing the part of the confused student perfectly. "Val, it's a strict 3-person squad requirement. How are you going to explain forcing your way onto my team?" "I will just show my VIP crest like I did yesterday," Valeria purred, crawling up the mattress and wrapping her arms possessively around his waist. "I'm sure Dean Alaric won't mind bending the rules a bit to expand your specific roster to a 4-person squad." "You are going to put up with Jax and Maya?" Zen asked, genuinely surprised. "I will grudgingly tolerate your little shield-bearer friend and the terrified healer," Valeria stated with a sigh. "But I am not letting you step into a combat zone with a damaged core without me. I am your shield. Where you go, I go. End of discussion." Zen let out a quiet sigh. He knew better than to argue when she used that tone. "Fine, but if you come, you follow my lead. We are supposed to be low-ranking students taking a basic midterm. No fancy Vanguard tech, no flashing your VIP status, and absolutely nothing that draws the Inquisitor's attention to us. Deal?" "Always, my love," Valeria promised. The next morning, the atmosphere at the Ares Military Academy was suffocating. Vanguard transports were parked around the perimeter of the campus. Heavily armed soldiers in black tactical gear stood at every entrance. The Inquisitor from yesterday was standing on a high observation balcony overlooking the main staging area, his cold eyes scanning the crowds of students. Zen walked into the staging room, his posture perfectly straight despite the agonizing throbbing in his ribs. Valeria walked exactly 1 step behind his right shoulder. She was back in her academy uniform, her thick glasses securely in place, projecting an aura of untouchable wealth. Dean Alaric stood on a raised platform at the front of the room, sweating profusely under the gaze of the Vanguard Inquisitor above, and the presence of someone he couldn't disregard down below. "Listen up, first years," Dean Alaric shouted into a magically amplified microphone. Due to unforeseen security protocols, the midterm extraction has been moved up. You will deploy into the artificial mega-dungeon. The facility has been divided into threat sectors based on your rank. You must locate the extraction beacon within your squad's assigned zone. You have exactly 2 hours. Zen spotted Jax waving frantically from the back of the room. Standing next to Jax, looking completely terrified, was Maya. Zen and Valeria walked over to them. "Bro, you look pale." Jax whispered as Zen approached. Jax was strapped into heavy, low E-rank kinetic armor, holding a massive tower shield. He paused, looking completely confused as he pointed at Val. Why is she here? I thought it was supposed to be a 3-person squad." "Exceptions are made for exceptional families," Val said, giving Jax a chilling, empty smile. "I am the 4th member of this squad. Do not get in my way." Maya whimpered, gripping her medical staff so tightly her knuckles turned white. She still remembered Valeria's death threat from a few days ago. "Maya, breathe," Zen told the trembling healer. "Just stay behind Jax and conserve your mana. You won't have to fight." Well, look at the mutant squad," a mocking voice sneered. Kalen Thorne pushed past a group of students, surrounded by his 2 massive lackeys. Kalen was wearing high-end, custom-forged B-rank armor. His wrist was perfectly healed, likely fixed by an expensive private healer overnight. An F-rank cripple, a barely passing shield bearer, a terrified medic, and the rich transfer girl. Kalen laughed, shaking his head. "Try not to cry too loud when the monsters show up, Arclight." Jax stepped forward, gripping his heavy shield. "Back off, Thorne. Didn't you learn your lesson yesterday?" Kalen's face flushed with anger, but he quickly forced a smirk. "Today isn't a sparring mat, Jax. There are no instructors to call foul." Kalen stepped forward, intentionally bumping his shoulder hard against Jax as he walked past ahead toward the elevators. Zen's eyes immediately locked onto Jax's heavy supply backpack. "System," Zen thought. "Scan Jax's gear." I hope you guys enjoy the story. If you like the story, then hit the like button and comment. Subscribe for the next part and click the bell icon.